Okay, so this is obviously super late as usual, but I've been busy, real life. It was calling me, bro, okay? And it exists. I had to get some stuff done, but it's finally here. So I have some thoughts on Worldslayer. Altogether, I feel like I was very conflicted about the update. We're gonna go over that real quick. Starting with the story. The story was actually really interesting to me. I think this is probably one of, if not the best parts of the entire update. I didn't expect to care that much about the story. Personally, I thought it was gonna be like one and done, get it out the way. I thought it was gonna be more of just like a gimmick, but no, story's fire, bro. It was fire. I was so invested. It had a lot of really interesting developments. It was just so good, bro. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm trying to keep the spoilers to a minimum, so if there are people who haven't played it yet, I don't ruin it. But the main antagonist or whatever, the weird tentacle chick, the tentacle chick, yo, I didn't think she was that dope, to be honest. She just seemed like a strong chick or whatever. She didn't do that much. She wasn't that menacing in my opinion, but the stuff after that, the actual world building and crap for Outriders was amazing. Like anime Hunter x Hunter levels of world building. Like, I thought it was fire, bro, fire. And it makes you ask more questions. It makes you more curious about the world as a whole. I thought they did a really good job on that. I've never cared this much about the Outriders world since release, period. Like, it's just so much better now. It wasn't super predictable. I mean, there were parts of the game that were just kind of, you know, going through the motions story-wise, but I think the twist, especially at the end, was really, really good. I didn't think that's how things were gonna go at all. The story surrounding like Taria, Gratar, whatever they want to call it. What's up with these games and Outriders with these super extra names? Just make it like the Temple of something. Nah, that Taria, whatever, bro. I digress. The name's extra, but the story and the lore surrounding the whole area and the people that created it, stuff like that, can't overstate how good and how pleasantly surprised I was by the lore surrounding the endgame mode. Next, we move on to gameplay. A huge improvement on base gameplay. I was actually really surprised because when I was looking at the trailers and crap before this happened, and I was like talking to other YouTubers, I think it's like NYC Casual, I think I was talking to him, I would join this stream at one point, and he was talking about it because, like, you know, it's $40, it's not cheap for a DLC. And I was like, bro, this gameplay looking real mid. Like, it's looking kind of trash. I'm not gonna lie. It just looked like run and shoot, like the normal everyday Outriders gameplay. But no, the gameplay is way better, bro, way better. And they really improved on the engagement factor of the game as a whole, which is a bit impressive, to be honest. They did something that Warframe is still struggling to do to this day. So basically, they still kept the fodder, they kept the trash enemies that you just kind of delete instantly or whatever. So you still have a power fantasy component to the gameplay. But on top of that, the bosses now are way tankier. Like, you can't just melt the boss in 15 seconds, at least not with the builds I had. So it usually takes a while to beat the boss, and then they'll call in more fodder to be like a distraction. It adds more variety to the gameplay. You have multiple things coming at you. There's usually objectives, especially in the end game, that have different objectives that you have to do. Now they have more telegraphed attacks. They're a lot more common. They have different mechanics now, so sometimes if you get hit with certain abilities, it'll take away your abilities so that you can't use them anymore, which nerfs your character a ton, but most of those skills are avoidable. So it adds a level of skill to gameplay where if you can avoid those attacks, you get rewarded, but if you get hit, you get punished. And so boss fights are a lot more engaging. For the most part, in my experience, they didn't last that long. Once you got a decent build, like once you got some new higher level loot and hopefully an apocalyptic weapon at least, the boss fights didn't seem unreasonable, except for maybe the very last boss. He took a while. I'm not gonna lie. That one was a bit much in my opinion. Not because it was difficult, just because after a certain amount of time, it just started to feel drawn out. And I'm like, why am I still fighting this guy? But other than that, I have no real complaints. I'm actually really impressed with the gameplay. The last boss of the campaign, she was a dope boss fight. Like, She wasn't super complicated. It got pretty predictable after a while, but it was very engaging. It was really fun. You understood the rules. You could dodge, you can avoid attack, move out of the way, and it was just really fun to play. Like I was legitimately surprised. I didn't expect it to be as engaging as it was. And it's really nice to know that instantly evaporate, like they're made out of wet tissue paper, like oof. But no, they actually last a while. They have large health bars, you know. It takes a minute to whittle them down. They feel like an equivalent to your Outrider in a lot of ways. I think they did pretty good. Moving on. Next, we have loot, because once again, looter shooter, huge part of the game. There's lots of new mods and gear sets. Melee builds are actually available now. I'm pretty sure a lot of people wanted to have melee kinds of builds in the game when it first released, but there wasn't anything there now, or there wasn't anything there. Now, we have a ton of different gear sets that allow melee builds. They're not like super melee, like you can't just run around with like a sword or something, but it does kind of fill in that niche. It gives you a bit more use for the melee skill, because honestly it's not that useful as it is right now for the most part. So that was a pretty good addition to the game. There's a bit more build variety, although some stuff was nerfed and pissed a lot of people off, but they also did buff some stuff in the latest patch, so it's kind of you know, they get it even. They're kind of even on that one. Apocalyptic gear is busted. It's lovely, bro. Like, one, it gives you something to chase, because now you have 3 mod slots and the last one is unchangeable, so you have to try to get at least 2 good mods in there, and the last one you could kind of fit in. Not only that, but it also makes things like, it makes legendaries a lot more useful in a lot of cases, because if they drop as apocalyptic gear, they're usually gonna have way better mods than most other pieces that drop as apocalyptic stuff, when it comes to weapons at least. Oh, and you can get like tier 3 mods on like normal epic loot, which makes rolling god rolls way easier, a lot more fun too. You can get really cool combinations. Overall, it is a bit subjective, you know, depending on what builds you like, what kind of stuff you were attached to, what you wanted out of the game, kind of depends. But as a whole, in general, I think it's just a net boon to the game. It has way better loot, more loot, there's more loot to chase. There's actually like a goal, I guess, when it comes to looting. It's easier to find god rolls, stuff like that. So loot, overall, I think it's a dub. And then finally, we have the end game. This is probably the most important part of the update, because it kind of succeeds or fails when it comes to the end game. It doesn't matter how good the story was or how long the campaign was, how good the loot is. For the most part, it doesn't really matter if you're still playing the same 15 expeditions or whatever. So I think in a lot of ways they did succeed. It's a really cool idea actually to have a level of exploration and mystery when it comes to endgame, you know. There really wasn't that much exploring the maps. There were just like a bunch of connected hallways or whatever. But in the new endgame, although it is kind of like connected hallways, there's like deviation. You can go to different areas to get certain gear items if you beat the bosses there. There's like these little treasure rooms, and you know where they are, but like it still leaves a little bit of exploration in a sense, because you're deviating from the original path, and they're optional, so it just gives you a bit more choice when you're exploring this specific area. I thought that was really cool. The maps are a lot larger. I think it's kind of hard to say if they're larger, right? But they feel larger. Scale is way larger than most things. Like, not just the size of the map necessarily, but like the structures in the map. They just have such a grand scale to them. It's like walking through New York City. Like, it's just, there's a different vibe you get from the area and like the geometry or whatever of the map. It's just a cool environment to play through. I thought it was really dope. But unfortunately, I think that's mostly where the good stuff ends, in my opinion, and let me explain why. The mode is mostly linear, except the troves. Now, the problem with troves are that they're only mainly half of the mode at most. Meaning, maybe there's, I'm gonna just make up a number. Let's just say 10. There's 10 boss areas, right? Probably half of those are areas you absolutely have to progress through. So you're gonna be fighting at least the same 5 enemies over and over and over again. Yes, you might find cool new troves or whatever, new bosses, new enemies, new rooms, but you still have to fight the same 5 guys to get there. It's just not that entertaining to me. Like, when I saw it originally, I was really excited. I assumed there was a level of like randomly generated enemies inside the rooms, and I think there is in certain areas, but I think in the main rooms, they're always the same.
I just can't do it.
After I played them a few times, I got the same exact enemies, so it's just a bit unfortunate in my opinion. I feel like it was a huge missed opportunity. The fact that you have this cool area and all these new things, you have really cool boss fights, but you're just going to be doing the same ones over and over again. Especially if you're a completionist and you want to do every room, every run, you're going to get bored of this mode, I feel like, extremely quickly. I did it like maybe twice and I couldn't even finish it the second time around. Not because it was difficult, just because I was bored. It just wasn't fun anymore. I was like, I already did this. I already fought half of these dudes. I went into a new room. That was kind of cool. You know, that was a new experience. But for the most part, I was just doing the same stuff over and over again. At least with expeditions, you had a bit of variety because, you know, you couldn't do the same expedition multiple times in a row. You had to do at least one other expedition before doing that expedition again. But when it came to this new end game, Guitar, whatever it's called, like the second time through, I didn't want to play it anymore. It's kind of trash, yo. This is this is mid. Like, what is this game mode? It killed it for me personally. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh well, there's so much stuff to do, but I completed pretty much the whole thing the first time. I did all the troves. So there's very few new experiences I can have in Guitar as far as I know. Because the end game mode feels more like a campaign story quest rather than actually replayable mode to me. So I guess is the verdict or whatever. Is it worth the money? I would say no. I really wanted to say maybe this, that, and I will give stipulations for why you should buy it, or reasons, or people that I think this will still be worth it too. But for the general population or whatever, if you haven't even played original Outriders, or maybe you played a little bit of the original, you were like, yo, I'm kind of having fun, should I get the DLC? I think for most people, it's probably just not worth it in my opinion. The loot is really cool. The story, amazing. Amazing. And honestly, if you're a huge story person, I think maybe buying the DLC is worth it. Like, I would still recommend getting it on sale, because $40 is a lot for some story crap, right? At that point, you may as well just watch a YouTube video. But if you really want to play through the story and experience it, I think getting it on sale would be worth it. But if we're talking just 40 bucks, slap it on the table, right? Slap the money on the table. Are you going to spend $40 on this DLC? I would have to say no. Okay? No, I'm sorry. It's not worth 40 bucks to me. It's not.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap.
The in-game mode just wasn't hitting for me. It didn't hit, bro. It was disappointing, and I can't justify spending $40 other than making a video about it on this game, on this DLC. It's not worth it. Also, I will not spoil the game, but I will say at the very end, there is a cliffhanger. It felt really cheap. It felt like sequel bait. It pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I went through the game mode or whatever, and like you get answers as you're going through the mode. So like as you're beating each boss, you're running through this thing, you're learning more and more about like the origins of a lot of the stuff. Ultimately, you get to the end and you do get some answers, right? But it just ends. And then the freaking credits, yo, I was pissed. I'm not, I was angry as hell. So even for story people, this might piss you off because I feel like this should have had an actual ending to it. Like, they should have just ended it, but it feels like they were like, oh, we need to make Outriders 2, or we need to sell another DLC. So they left it on a cliffhanger so they could obviously get you to buy the next one. I didn't like that. It's the same thing Destiny 2 does with their stupid, oh wait, let's do a cliffhanger at the end of every DLC so you could buy the seasons or whatever. It's annoying, but of course that takes more work. That pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie. This probably should have been in the story section, but I'm gonna leave it to the end, because people who watch to the end, bro, y'all are the real goats, okay? Y'all are the real goats. You deserve this. But that's my thoughts on Outriders, the DLC, Worldslayer, whatever you want to call it. And finally, this has nothing to do with the review. It's over now. I just want to say thank you to the people who are subbed. We hit 50 subs. The goal is 100, but we hit 50. I'm hyped, yo. Like, we're halfway there, guys. We only need 50 more, and then we're at 100. We'll have, I mean, we still won't have no clout, but we'll have some, I guess, a little bit, or we'll have more than we used to. But look, man, baby steps. We're almost there. So thank you guys. I appreciate you watching my content or whatever. Stay tuned. I have really good videos coming out, but real life stuff exists once again. I'm really busy, probably will be for the rest of the month, maybe month and a half. But after that, I have a ton of stuff I want to do. Ton of stuff. Really good content. Should be really entertaining. Hope you enjoy it. Anyway, God bless. Lights out.